yes, I could make more money, but then I'd have to work more. And what's the fun of that? And so it just went to, well, how can we lower our cost of living dramatically while improving our quality of living?
Welcome to the Go Hunt Life Show, hosted by Todd Nevins.
This is Todd Nevins, and I interview people that had seemingly normal lives and careers going, but they pulled the ripcord and blew up their comfort bubbles to hunt down their life that they had always dreamed of living. On today's episode, I talked to Paul Kortman, and he has two ripcord moments. First, when he quit the best job that he ever had to start his own marketing agency, and second, when him and his wife with 4 kids sold everything in Grand Rapids, Michigan to go location independent and travel the world while still running the agency. One of my favorite parts of this interview is how they prepared the kids for a life of travel and flying by creating a mock airplane in their living room. So when it came time to get on that plane with the kids, they were ready to go. But things didn't initially go as planned. Within 3 months of them being digital nomads, Paul lost 3 clients that equated to 90% of his revenue, and things quickly imploded. This is a story of a resilient family that refused to give up on their dreams of living and working from anywhere, and a motto that they've adopted when their traveling lifestyle hits a roadblock is, if we are going to laugh about it later, why not laugh about it now? My conversation with Paul Kortman starts right after a word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by PrintDirtCheap.com. Jeff Chrisman, the founder of Print Dirt Cheap, started his business the way most companies begin, with grit, determination, and a vision. And now, a decade later, he's built his company into an online printing powerhouse. If I've handed you a business card in the last 4 years, it was printed by Print Dirt Cheap. And the decals all over my laptop, they printed those too. They print and ship over 30 categories of printing products, from business cards and decals to banners, company letterhead, restaurant menus, and a ton of direct mail pieces. And they have just rolled out an entirely new website, ensuring that your online user experience to place an order is simple and fast. And when you place that order, use promo code LIFEHUNTER for $10 off. And Jeff has just launched Success Hackers, which is a global group of tenacious entrepreneurs that share the latest tips, tools, and hacks into growing a business. Check it out at facebook.com/Success Hackers. Paul, thank you for jumping on the show.
Hey, happy to be here, Todd. Thanks for having me.
I already know with what we've been talking about, this is going to be an awesome episode.
Yeah, we've had some laughter already, so I'm ready for this.
All right. Well, okay. Where are you located in the world, and describe what you would see if you were to walk outside?
Well, I'm kind of sitting outside, so I can describe what I can see. We're in Mexico right now. I'm in San Miguel de Allende, which is a colonial city. So think of like European influence, Spanish influence, really cool architecture, and then the Mexican culture with the fiestas and parties and just super tranquilo. So that's San Miguel de Allende. We're up in the mountains, so don't think like sweaty hot Mexico. Think like it almost gets down to freezing at night and then up to 75, 80 degrees during the day. The land of eternal spring. It's that temperature just about year round.
So how old are you? You're married. How many kids do you have?
So I'm 27. Nope. I wish. I'm 37. One number wrong. I have 4 kids. My wife is 40, and our oldest is 11, and our youngest is 5. And we're location independent.
What is your profession and primary ways that you earn a living?
I'm a digital marketer. So you give me a product, and I figure out a way to sell it online or get traffic to it. And I own a business that does that. The name of our business is Connects Digital Marketing.
Are your clients only in the United States, Canada, or globally?
Our clients are globally. Most of them end up being like Hong Kong and Singapore registered, so I don't know where their CEOs are, but we have about 50% of our base is US, and then 50% is in the digital nomad community, and so they're somewhere in the world.
Take me back, though. You weren't always a digital nomad, and you were not always self-employed. Take me back to your life back in Grand Rapids. to 2010 when you had a real job. What were you doing?
So I quit the best job I've ever had that year. And to this date, I started my own business. And so, my last job was the best job I ever had. But what I realized, I was working for a marketing agency. And originally, 4 years prior, I had started working there as an IT guy. I have, I have my certified credential nerd card, pocket protector, and all of that. And I just had a big mouth and told the web developers they were doing SEO wrong. And they said, fine, you do it. And long story short, I had hired an IT guy to replace myself. I built a digital marketing department within a traditional marketing agency. And so I was managing digital marketing for all of the clients of that agency. And I had 3 or 4 staff working for me. In the end of 2010, or throughout 2010, I was living an hour outside the city, commuting every day, working 5 days a week in the office, working at least 50 hours in the office, plus 10 hours of commuting a week, plus I would work nights and weekends. And so I was gone from my wife and kids, 70 hours a week. And it got to the point of one day I just kind of woke up and said, hey, babe, like, can I do what I'm doing for this company, but do it on my own? And I just looked at the number. I knew all the numbers because I was doing the billing. I was doing the account management. So I knew the markup that we were putting out there. And it was atrocious that I was getting, $15 an hour and billing out at $150.
So your plan, you've got 2 ripcords. Number 1 is you quitting your job. And number 2, then a few years later, you go location independent. So you were looking at the hours that you were working and what you were making. What did you feel? Did you not think, I'm going to work just as many hours if I'm self-employed because I've got to generate my own clients and keep them happy and generate new clients and all that stuff? Like at what point did you think, no, I'm going to be working less and be able to spend more time with my family?
I believe that I was going to be working hard. I believe that I was going to be working just as much, if not more work actually, because I wasn't commuting, but to get my own business up and running. But stroke of luck, like good businesses have a little bit of serendipity, a little bit of timing, a little bit of who knows what, that just, you call it luck or karma or whatnot. But this business had serendipity when it started. And essentially what it was is that when I turned my 2 weeks in to my boss, I actually said, I could work 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever. I had lined up 1 or 2 clients on the side. I had a non-compete. And so it was, it was a gray area. Like was I getting in trouble and all this. And so once I had 2 clients lined up, I knew that I could go out and line up other clients because I was coming in at $50 an hour and they're used to spending $150.
Sure.
And I had built my network because I was the one bringing business into this agency. And so I figured I could do much of the same of what I'm doing, just do exactly what I'm doing, just doing it on my own. I had no idea the amount of work that running a business was, involved in that sort of thing, the difference between being a freelancer and running a business. But I learned quickly because after the 2 weeks, my boss basically said, the company I was working for said, we can't find anybody who can do what you can do. So they said, can we hire you for 3 of these projects that, I was managing 14 clients at the time. And they wanted to turn around and hire me as a freelancer for those 3 projects. And I was like, okay, sure. And I started running the numbers. At my billable rate for those 3 projects, A, they were paying me more. B, I was making more money working those 3 projects only than I was working 14 projects for them.
I'm assuming you transitioned away from working for your ex-employer and then building your own client base. Am I right?
Oh, for sure.
How soon were you not working with that employer?
As soon as they could insource, they did.
How soon did you no longer work with them and then you were completely without a net on your own?
Well, one of those projects was a 6-month-long project. And so I knew that project, if I only had that project for the next 6 months, I had a runway. I had 6 months to live and be fine. And that was between 5 and 10 grand a month for that one project. I had 6 months guaranteed. And so the other projects went away, within a month or 2 or 3 months, but that one lasted for 6 months. And then they transitioned into becoming my client.
Okay. So then you had them as a client. Got it.
Yeah. But I mean, by the time that 6 months was out, I still, I had 10 of my own clients. I mean, I turned around and hired 2 staff members that first month. Like, it was crazy.
Leading up to your second ripcord, what transpired between that time and then in 2014 when you guys decided to sell virtually everything that you owned and go digital and travel while working remotely?
Well, a couple of things. One, I was only working 20 hours a week, but I was making enough to afford our lifestyle, and life was good. But then my wife and I, Becky and I, we looked at each other and just basically, I was listening to a lot of podcasts from digital nomads. I'll drop, it used to be called, I can't remember what it used to be called. It's now the Tropical MBA podcast. And they, it's basically, I was listening to too many digital nomads. And I was having a little bit of jealousy because we had already had, 2 or 3, by the time we left, 4 kids. And so it was just like, we're on this path of settling down and having roots. But my desire was to be with, my counterparts, my friends who were all traveling the world. My wife and I had traveled before getting married internationally. Then after getting married and before having kids, we traveled internationally. And then once we started having kids, we bought a house and sat still for 7 years. And it just started to irritate me. And it was irritating to my wife too. And we were talking about it and felt this pull to keep up with the Joneses. And we were just like, yes, we could buy another car. We could buy a bigger house. I could work more and we could make more. And it was just like, I'm quoted in a magazine or in a newspaper back then as saying, yes, I could make more money, but then I'd have to work more. And what's the fun of that? And so it just went to, well, how can we lower our cost of living dramatically while improving our quality of living?
How did you go through that process to get to the point of selling everything and then stepping on the plane? Like, what was the hardest thing? You owned a house and it was full of stuff, and you have kids and they have a bunch of stuff. Like, what was the hardest thing, one thing that you had to get rid of that was the most difficult?
I had invested like probably $2,000 in not just a stand-up desk, but a wall-mounted desk, with dual screens and the keyboard on the tray that floats and all this. Like, it was the sweetest setup. And I had a stand-up desk in one office, and I had this wall-mounted desk up in the living room. And so, like, I could work in 2 different places in the house and be a part of my family and all this. And it was like, we tried to sell it online, tried to sell it on a yard sale. I basically gave it away for like $50 or something. Mm-hmm. And that just hurt. It broke my heart because it was so heavy. There was no way I was going to, take it, and it was pointless to store it. But the value there and how much freedom that gave me, to be able to adjust, just by the matter of a couple of centimeters, the angle of my keyboard and that sort of thing. Like, it was awesome. And to this day, I miss having that stand-up desk.
How did you get the kids prepared to step on the plane, and where were you heading first?
A couple of things. One, selling all of our stuff wasn't that bad. We sold 90% of our stuff. My wife is incredible with our kids, and so we actually set up a mock airplane in our living room and talked about G-forces and talked about thrust and lift, and we pretended it. And I don't know that I took a video, but we actually sat there all in our seats in an airplane, in a mock airplane, and pretended, okay, we're going to take off, and it starts to shake and you lean back and so like the kids had never flown before.
Oh my gosh. So that's a great idea.
It was, okay, let's pretend, let's goof off, let's try to make, and we watched some YouTube videos and we tried to, get kids used to this whole traveling idea and explained as much as we can about getting around in airports and that sort of thing. And then we ended up doing a round the world trip our first year. We ended up going from Asia to Africa to Europe and then back to the States. And so we ended up doing a round the world trip.
For 1 year. How many countries?
24 countries and 30 flights.
And you were on the move constantly. How did you keep your business running?
I didn't do very well at that. Like, truth be told, the business started out super successfully, you know, stroke of luck, serendipity, whatever. And then what I found out as soon as I left the States, all of my referrals started going to my competitors. And it wasn't, you know, I hadn't known half of my clients before they became clients. I hadn't met half of them. But what I had found out, and I didn't realize, was that the people who I did meet with were referring people to me. And so it was a second tier networking effect. And when I disappeared, out of sight, out of mind. And so they started referring to my competitor who was still in town. And so he ended up having to hire a couple of people because he got so busy and my funnel dried up. Now, I still had existing clients. And so, you know, we're good. And 6 months down the road, we're sitting in Africa and all of a sudden it's like, well, you know, normal client churn. I lost 3 clients in 3 months. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I lost 90% of my revenue. And so things collapsed. So I'd love to paint the story of it's all just been golden since starting my own business. But no, we had, and it was so bad that like Becky and I went to counseling for our marriage because you have a financial collapse like that and it impacts everything. And my anger was unchecked. And so, yeah, it just like everything imploded in Africa, and not having anything to do with Africa, having everything to do with it had been 6 months since we had left the States.
Is there anything else that you could have done to circumvent that immediate shift with those 3 clients?
Not specifically with those 3 clients. It was just life cycle. It wasn't, for those of you who are in agency world, who are in, you know, freelancer world, you understand that you can have a client for 3 years and then the project's done. But that's why you have a pipeline. That's why you have new clients coming in all the time to overcome that churn rate. And I just didn't.
When you got back to Grand Rapids, what was your plan? And did you have a house? I mean, do you have to restart everything?
Yeah, we had to restart everything. And we knew, so when we bought tickets to fly back to the States, and we told the kids, and by the way, we bought those out of savings because we, you know, had no income at that point. You know, talked to the kids and said, hey, this is what's happening. Each one of them, one at a time, not the youngest one. He was too young to understand really at that time. But each one of the 3 bigs, they were just through tears said, you know, I'm okay with going back to Grand Rapids, or Michigan is a country in their perspectives. And so they're like, I'm okay with going to that country of Michigan, but I want you to promise that we're not going to stop traveling, because they had fallen in love with traveling so much. And so Becky and I, though we had no money to our names and nothing to fall back on, returned back home, me with my tail between my legs as a failed business entrepreneur, a digital nomad, and knew that we weren't going to be there for life. Knew that this was a season of where either I was going to get a job or we were going to rebuild the business. And my vote was to get a job and my wife's vote was to rebuild the business. And so then, yeah, I was able to rebuild the business, just re-engage my network and just churn it back up. And I tell you what, it didn't take but 3 months and I had more work than I knew what to do with.
Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Click Placement, a digital agency designing Google AdWords and pay-per-click marketing strategies for startups, small businesses, and even people building a side hustle. Hit up clickplacement.com to start a conversation. If you would like to personally support the Go Hunt Life podcast, go to patreon.com/Go Hunt Life to make a donation.
We are talking from San Miguel. You are in San Miguel, so obviously you were in Grand Rapids for a period of time and then you headed south. How long were you back in Grand Rapids before the thought of like we're going and heading south into Mexico?
We had signed a 6-month contract and on a house that we were renting. And so we had to finish out that 6-month contract, but we bought an RV in February and our contract was done in like May or something. So we knew that, you know, by the time February had rolled around, we knew that we had had our ducks in a row, had fixed the problem, had got a better pipeline, and we were on to even a bigger and better solution. But we knew that we had itchy feet, and we weren't going to be able to sit still. So we basically spent a winter in Michigan, and then as soon as the ice broke, we got in our RV and drove up to Canada, and have been in the Americas in our RV since.
Since 2015, correct?
Yes.
What is your RV? Is it a pull behind or is it a motorhome? Like what is it?
So what happened was we had decided, hey, we want to go to Mexico and Ecuador, and there were all these points on the map of we need to go visit, but they were unlike Southeast Asia in that it's expensive to fly there, and then you basically need a rental, because they're not like Southeast Asia. And so it was like, well, then why don't we drive there? It's a 50-hour drive from where we were to Baja, California. And we had a minivan, and so why don't we just drive down there? And then we have our minivan, and we don't, because rental cars are budget busters. Just in case you ever wondered, if you're going to rent a car for a month or 6 months, like, just forget it. Like, you got to be a millionaire to live like that. So we were like, okay, we'll do the car thing. And then it exploded from there because it was like 50 hours in a minivan. Who wants to do that with 4 little kids? And so we started looking, okay, why don't we get something that we can walk around in? And so then it was a motorhome, and then it was like, well, okay, now let's trade our house for a motorhome and that sort of thing. And so then we ended up with a 37-foot long Class A motorhome, the biggest monstrosity we could afford. It was, used. It's 20 years old, 30 years old. No, it's 30 years old, but it's an entertaining experience that I would not recommend people do.
Why is that? You've been living out of it for 2 years with the big family. Why would you not recommend that? Why don't you change it?
I love the tiny house movement, and I love living in a tiny house. We have a great house. It's 300 square feet, to give you guys an idea. Like, we went from 3,000 square feet, which is a modest Midwest house, to 300 square feet. And it's fine. Like, I have no need for space. The issue is driving it. It costs so much money, and every time you drive, you break something. I can't tell you how many pipes I've broken, and suddenly you're leaking out 100 gallons of fresh water out onto the highway. And it's just like that, I've got to fix that, and then I have to go buy water because, by the way, we're in Mexico, and so it's not like you can just hook up and drink water from any garden hose. So, there's been so many hassles, and it's not meant for what we're doing, which is overlanding. And but then I have so many friends who they buy used RVs, and then they realize how much work it is. I chose the location independent lifestyle because I suck at housekeeping, I suck at yard upkeep, I suck at maintenance. These are office hands. These aren't like chop down a tree hands. I'm really good at typing and I'm really bad at fixing, stuff. Things break so fast and so many times. They say that every time you move it, you're basically taking your house through an earthquake. And it's true.
That's an interesting comparison. That absolutely makes sense. And though it's also your office. And so I want to get into the nuts and bolts of like running your business and how you have avoided the pitfall from before when your pipeline dried up. Like, how are you keeping this going and managing the breakdowns and moving from Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi? What's changed this time?
Well, internet, like there's a way to hack internet. T-Mobile offers this really cool unlimited international plan. You have to pay $25 extra over their T-Mobile One plan, and then you have global unlimited internet. And if you abuse that by using personal hotspot, they shut you down. But if you happen to have a jailbroken phone that has a Tether app on there that sends personal hotspot data over the regular cell lines, T-Mobile doesn't realize that you're using personal hotspot, and they don't shut you down. So many users out there have tried this, and they get shut down after 3 to 6 months because T-Mobile says it's meant for visiting Mexico or for traveling, not for visiting, not for living overseas. Well, jailbreak your phone, get a Tether app, to hide that data, and that's what I've been using for a couple of years. So what that means is T-Mobile has a partnership with Telcel here in Mexico, and they have the, if I say like the Verizon network of Mexico, they're the best of the best. They have 4G LTE anywhere. And so literally I've been on the beach with a cell tower behind me, no electricity, no running water except for what we carried with us. And I have, 4G LTE service, 20 megs down, 20 megs up. And I'm not paying per meg over my cell connection. So, we have solar panels and batteries, and, our phones run off of USB, so they're easy to charge from batteries, and our laptops, we just fire up the generator once or twice a day to charge up our laptops. And like, here we are totally off grid, and we've got 20 megs down, like that is the life. Let me just tell you.
Wow. All right. What other online tools do you depend on most to run your business and communicate with your clients, like Slack or Uber Conference? What do you depend on?
Yeah, I'm pretty basic. Slack, Trello, Hangouts, and Chrome, obviously, and then all of our specific to the work that we do. We definitely productize things, so that made it a whole lot easier for me to systematize, but it also made it easier for me to sell. So, I get on podcasts and I can talk about it. I'm focused more on sales now, which is a change in how I fix the whole pipeline issue, is that by systematizing and making it so it's not Paul who's doing the work, but Paul who's talking about it and Paul who's dealing with clients and new clients and selling. That's my whole goal every day, is to not do the work, but to talk about it. Then that's the shift that made it so that I'm more successful now. So, specific tools and that sort of thing. We have a ton of specific tools. I am a Zapier fanboy. Like my heart skips a beat every time I get an email from Zapier out of pure joy, because I love that app. And why? Because it allows me to systematize things. When this happens, trigger that, make this happen. And so I have it integrated with Trello and with different apps. And so every Monday, all of my clients get a status update email that's automated, and I don't have to touch it. It just is done. And so these sorts of things that if I can optimize and get away 5 minutes of my work on each client, and I have 30 clients, that adds up to a couple hours every month or every week. And so over the, if I spend 5 hours optimizing it through Zapier, then suddenly I've saved myself 35 hours over a year. And if I keep doing that, it gets me back to the point of where the system is running and I don't have to be involved.
Do your clients know where you are physically located, and do they care?
Most of my clients know, and most of them don't care. Those clients that I talk to on the phone, we have a lot of fun conversations, but a lot of our clients, they buy online. They buy from us online with a credit card. It's not a, let's go through a proposal process or anything like that. It's, here's our product. Here's what we offer. You buy it. Sometimes I'll have a sales call with them, whatever, but we don't talk about where I live or anything, because that doesn't matter. What matters is that we do the work.
Where are they calling? Are they calling a U.S. cell phone number? Are you using Uber Conference? How do you connect?
I have a Skype number. I have 2 Google Voice numbers, and I have a 4th number somewhere out there that I can't think of what it is. But yeah, I use all of those to make sure that that I'm cloaked. But most often I just, we do a Hangouts, or I'll call them from my Skype out number. You have San Antonio on your LinkedIn profile as your location. Why San Antonio? Well, a couple of different reasons. One, for RVers, Texas is a great place. There's 3 states, Texas, Florida, and South Dakota, that most RVers will transfer their permanent U.S. residency to because of the lack of state income tax. But of those 3 also are homeschool friendly. And so you don't have to, like, there are others that don't have state income tax, but those 3 are homeschool friendly, so that we don't have to jump through hurdles to be able to say, hey, we homeschool our kids. Whereas if your residency was in New York State, you'd have to send in paperwork every 6 months and show up and have your kids tested and all this. So we needed to transfer our residency to Texas, and you kind of have to prove that you did that. So we got a mailbox in Texas, and I love San Antonio. It's a beautiful city.
It's a great city.
My favorite date night is always taking my wife to San Antonio. So
on the Riverwalk, of
yep,
course.
Exactly.
All right, so you also started multiple podcasts, but the one that I've been listening to is the Nomad Together podcast. How long ago did you start that?
Wow, it's probably been 2, maybe 3 years. We started it a year after we left.
All right. What was your goal when you started it, and how has that changed? Because you are you're what, 60 or 70 episodes in at least, aren't you?
Yep. And we are not as cool as all the other podcasts who make it, the super dedicated, hey, we're coming at you every week. We're more like, hey, we're going to come at you with really quality information. And it might be every week. It might not be for a month. And part of that is because we are living the life. And so, there are things that get in the way, like, hey, my kids need my attention. And so I'm going to put the podcast on hold for a couple of weeks, so that we're a little different there, that it's not just all about, so much data, so much content coming at you. It's more about high quality, making sure that this is really valuable information, and talking through the practical tips, the practical applications of living a location independent lifestyle. So our goal when we set this up was, hey, there are people talking about, there's another podcast, the Family Adventure Podcast, which is super fantastic. It's the inspirational side. Ours is different. We talk about banking. We talk about how's it to have a midwife overseas? What is healthcare like overseas? And so we dedicate episodes to those topics so that it's really practical information, so that hey, I can do this and here's how. And so we tried to set out to be the practical side of life of choosing this lifestyle. And it's been amazing, because something that birthed out of that is a Facebook group that now has over 3,000 members, of where there are thousands of families out here doing this. And to be able to connect those people, and to be able to now be in San Miguel and have people come here and be like, I'm coming there because the Kortmans are there. They're obviously going to fall in love with this place, but then to be able to engage with them and show them this cool town, it's pretty amazing. Is
there one conversation or one moment during a conversation that sticks out the most?
There are favorite episodes, and there's still some of the earlier episodes. And it's just because of the practicality of them. So the banking episode 5, it's just Becky and I talking through it. And it's me educating her on banking, on how we do banking in international and that sort of thing, and why Schwab is so cool. I should do an updated one, because there's a couple more banks now that have come around to accepting digital nomad families. But the other one is, I think it's either episode 15 or 18. I want to say 18. It's called Facing the Naysayers. Because anytime you choose to do something that doesn't fit the mold, people are going to tell you to your face, or not to your face, thank you, Facebook, that you're stupid and wrong, and you're going to hell, and you're going to destroy your kids. And let me tell you, when none of our family members, none of our friends were doing this, and we set out and said, hey, we're going to do this, okay, that was crazy, and we got told off that, we're failing our kids by not sending them to school. We had already been homeschooling them for 7 years, so suddenly now that we're going to take them out of the country, now we're failing them even to the next level. And then when we got the RV and said we were driving it into Mexico, people were just like, oh, that'll be the last 6 months of your life. We'll never see you again. You're going to die. They're just going to steal everything from you. And so my favorite was that episode where we read through these comments, real comments that people said to us, typed out to us and said to our faces. And we're just like, okay, let's all share in the fact that this is stupid and this sucks, and you're going to face comments like this. But let's laugh at it and move on. And we found that has been one of the most encouraging episodes for folks, because anybody who wants to do this, they're afraid of what other people, not necessarily they all are afraid, but they know that people are going to say negative things about them, or are going to tell them that they're doing it wrong. And to be able to share in that and say, no, you're not the only one who has experienced that, and it's okay.
That's great. I've experienced that, and a lot of the people that I have talked to that have chosen a lifestyle like this have also had to face those those naysayers. I will go back and listen to that one because that is not one that I have listened to. Very interesting. All right. What are you focused on specifically in the next 6 months?
We're actually in a transition period of where we're setting up a home base here in San Miguel de Allende. We've acquired horses. We have land and that we're currently renting. And I was just talking with a reporter from the New York Times, and she's like, so you're setting roots down there. I mean, what's to say you're any different than any other expat family? And it's like, well, here's the thing. After we get this established, we're going to travel from here and come back here. But we're only going to be here 6 months out of the year. And so I'm really looking forward to, I'm planning on, because it's colder here than I thought it would be in the winter. Like, I am wearing sandals, I am wearing short sleeves. So, I think my blood has thinned. I'm going back to visit Michigan here in a couple of weeks and the snow. And so I don't know how I'm going to handle that. But, I'm looking forward to next winter spending it at the beach again. We have really cool, fond memories of the beach. And so we want to go spend some time at the ocean with our kids being older and be able to do some more snorkeling, get my scuba license. But all that is, first we have to get our home base set up here so that the RV doesn't have to move, so that we can Airbnb the RV out, so that people are there to take care of our horses and just have all that. So on the personal side, that's what we're doing. On the business side, I need to take it up to the next level as far as scale goes. We've been in a period of preparing for scale and growth, and now I really am in the process of growing it. We've had a couple of hiccups with some staff members, and so we've solved those problems, but now I really need to pour on the growth even more and double size in the next 6 months. So that's what I'm working on.
What piece of advice do you look back on when you're on the side of the road, the RV is broken down, everything is going wrong, or that you reflect back on and that you share the most to other people that are wanting to aspire to be a digital nomad?
We have a phrase that a friend of ours had as their family motto, or one of their 20 family mottos, and we've adopted it as ours. It's not easy to do, but if you keep reminding yourself of it, it's so helpful. If you're going to laugh about it later, why not laugh about it now?
Incredible.
There's a couple of podcasts. We have two incredibly terrible visa stories, visa run, border run stories. Like trying to flee immigration and getting caught by the state police. Like, that's just one of them. And that was a terrible situation. Becky and I have been deported from a country before we had kids. Like, there's all kinds of crazy stories that I would totally win in two truths and a lie. But the thing is, the better I am at remembering, hey, I'm going to laugh about this later, or this is going to make a great podcast, or this is going to make a great blog post. If I can get my brain into that groove, it's going to go better. If you just kind of take a step back and go, wow, is this really happening? This is so terrible, it's funny. It will actually go better, because if you're having a good attitude, no matter what happens, it's going to be just fine. So, for example, today, I'm on my 4th internet connection, my 2nd device, my 3rd set of earbuds and headphones for this podcast. And
thank you for that effort.
Todd and I were laughing about it as we started here, but it's like, it's just a good story. If you put it in reality and you put it in realistic terms, like, even if you lose all of your clients, you can get more. Even if you lose your job, you can get another one. What's the worst that could happen? And really, the answer to that is that I make a miserable experience out of this because of my attitude. And so if I can change that, and I'm preaching to the choir because I've had a challenging couple of days, if I can change my attitude, and if you can do the same, there are some amazing adventures and stories to live through and laugh at while you're living.
You can find Paul and the Kortmans at homealongtheway.com, nomadtogether.com, and Paul directly at paulkortman.com. And his digital agency is Connects Digital Marketing, Connects with an X. And go check out the Nomad Together podcast. It rocks. Paul, thank you very much for joining me today.
And Todd, I am super thankful that we were able to pull this off, that the internet held through. And I do look forward to meeting you in person. And anybody listening, I'm here to help. So I'm really, no matter what your life dream is, no matter what your location independent dream lifestyle is, living aboard a sailboat, whatever, Becky and I are here to help. We'd love to help you reach out in any way you can.
Don't forget to hit up the online printing rock stars at printdirtcheap.com and use promo code LifeHunter for $10 off. Hey, Life Hunters, thank you for listening to this episode of Go Hunt Life. If you like the show and would like to support it, go to iTunes and do this. Subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and review it. It helps. And thank you. If you or someone that you know has quit their normal life to follow their dreams, I would love an introduction and maybe interview them on the show. You can find me at gohuntlife.com and also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at Go Hunt Life. Until next time, stay weird, dare greatly, and ripcord out.